Asmongold recently put out a tweet with the 3-step program needed to save World of Warcraft. Let's see what he has to say. Hello, everyone. My name is Naxius. I'm a streamer over on Twitch. I've been playing World of Warcraft for approximately 17 years. I started just after Burning Crusade came out. So I've been playing for a while, and I played a lot of World of Warcraft, like an obscene amount of World of Warcraft when I was younger. Obviously, as time went on, the amount of time I had to play kind of dropped off, but I more or less quit WoW midway through Shadowlands. I played a little bit here and there, played Classic, and most recently did play quite a bit of the most recent patch, but even then it was only for a period of about 2 months. And I've had my problems with the game, which has made me not excited to play it. So I'm actually anxious to see if the things that Asmongold said in a recent tweet actually address some of the problems I have. I have a feeling they're going to be a bit of a doozy, though. I haven't read too much into it yet, but Twitter got lit up by what he had to say. So why don't we check out what he said was the 3-step program and see if it applies to the issues I have.
As I said, here's how to fix WoW. Reset everybody's spells, and then remake every class with like 10 spells or less. Number one.
I mean, I understand what he's getting at, that the amount of abilities that classes have now has gotten really large. In fact, even with my gamer mouse and hotkeys, I actually have trouble binding everything in a way that it's easy to get at. But I mean, like, I don't know if that's a huge enough problem, because even with me playing Rogue and having a lot of buttons to press, it's not like a lot of those buttons come into play super often. There's still like a key 5 or 6. So let's see what else he has to say.
Number two. Remove all raiding difficulties except for 40-man raids. And then make 40-man raids of the relative same difficulty as like Old War hard modes. Make them easier and make it to where there's way more people. Number three.
Okay. No. I don't agree with the 40-man part. Like, when I was a guild/raid leader years ago, it was hard enough to get 25 people to commit. Now you want me to try and get 40? That just seems excessive. I do understand that he's trying to get back to the classic WoW era where a raid felt like a huge event, maybe, and that is true. Having 40 people felt like pretty awesome. All of you in there at the same time rushing these bosses. I think the main point that I do agree with is that make raids easier. Raids have gotten super complicated over the course of the 17 years that I've played. When I compare mechanics to even like BC or Wrath of the Lich King versus now, it's insane how many mechanics every boss has. I got to write a dissertation every time I want to fight a boss, which is very daunting for new players and probably locks a lot of people out of raiding for other issues such as being able to get raid spots and things like that. So
Remove all add-ons with no exceptions. That's about it, actually.
Okay, well, he doesn't get really into detail there, but that is going to be a hot take. But I think I get it. I think I understand where he's coming from. Especially when it comes to the raiding community, like, you basically need to have a subset of add-ons in order to even be allowed to raid, and some people might consider add-ons cheating. It strikes me as interesting that he says no add-ons, period, no exceptions, because I don't really think things like recount or all the things are a huge problem, but things like DBM and weak auras and things like that, and they basically, some of them, if you get enough of the add-ons, basically plays the game for you and tells you exactly what you need to do and when, which again, it's, if you don't want to play with add-ons, if you want to play the game like naturally, it can get you locked out of raids. But That's his three-step program, apparently. I mean, in the end, I think what he's getting at, especially, is that WoW is more catered to the elite, or the sweats, as he'd probably call them. It is, and I think that's something that kind of, for a game this long, is something that would happen naturally. Because if you have people that have been playing the game as long as I have, if they were raiders, they probably do want more of a challenge or more mechanics that they haven't seen before. But if you have the raid experience of a new player, the mechanics you see now are absolutely insane and daunting to get into. But someone who's been playing for 15 years, they've seen the sort of natural progression of raid difficulty, so it may not strike them as all that crazy where raids are now. But I think the reality of the matter is that World of Warcraft has definitely shrunk in size in terms of the number of players. I hesitate to say it's dying. Like, there's doom and gloomers all over the place saying that WoW is dying. It's definitely less than what it was and may, over time, continue to hemorrhage players. I mean, I do believe I saw some post on Wowhead recently where the WoW devs fully admitted that they're used to seeing a sort of like curve every expansion. It'd be peak when it came out, drop as it went on. And then when Dragonflight came out, like, the players didn't come back, is what they were saying. So there is a lot of hemorrhaging of players. So over time, it'll become a problem. I do believe that the difficulty of the game certainly contributes to that, because it does feel, if you go into raid, because I haven't raided in a while now. I haven't raided in years. But I remember, I think it was in Shadowlands, I took a look at what I would need, and it's like, you gotta have all these add-ons and know exactly how they work. You have to know the fights beforehand. You need to do a certain amount of DPS or have the achievements. There's so much more gatekeeping now to get into guilds, or pug raids especially, and I think that just locks out new players. And if new players have this huge, probably the main section of the game, that's locked out to them, it might make them back off. Me personally, I don't know if I fully agree with the raid difficulty thing. I don't think having multiple raid tiers is incorrect, but I do believe that the difficulty curve on those raid tiers is too much. The difference between LFR and normal is bonkers, at least in my past experience. And then from normal to heroic, I don't think it's like super bad, but in between heroic and mythic, it's absolutely insanity. Mythic, basically, at the beginning of every raid tier, is literally made for those top 1%ers so that they can make the world first race relevant. They don't want the top guilds coming in and steamrolling the raids. So they have to, like, overtune the shit out of them. And that locks out a bunch of players. That makes it so that the average WoW player has to wait for multiple nerfs before they could probably even think to compete and do a mythic raid. That being said, it's interesting because none of the things that he listed are the main reason why I've sort of quit WoW. I do have a problem with the story being as disjointed as it is. Dragonflight had a better story, but it's a very self-contained story that doesn't have overarching consequences throughout the rest of Azeroth. War Within probably gets back to that form. I think one of my main problems is actually kind of a me problem. When I play games, I try to be as much of a completionist as possible, because I kind of figure, why purchase a game if you're not going to try and play every aspect of it? But as I've got older and gotten responsibilities, the amount of time that I have to play is less and less and less, versus the amount of things that are in the game to be done. There's so much more collecting now. When I think about Wrath of Lich King, there were no battle pets to collect. There were pets, but there were a heck of a lot less of them. You know, there were mounts to collect, but there were a heck of a lot less of them. There was a lot less per patch in Wrath of Lich King than there was every patch now. And there was no transmogs, you know, there was no toys, things like that. Like, a lot of that stuff was not there. As someone that enjoys the majority of World of Warcraft, I liked questing, I liked dungeons, I liked raids, I liked PvP. But somewhere around, I'd say Legion, Blizzard kind of changed their attitude to be, we want people to pick their favorite thing in WoW and basically never have to stop doing it. Which locked me out of a lot of content because, as a completionist, I was like, I have to do world quests every day, every single day. Why? Well, I mean, I got to get the chest that I get every 10,000 rep because there's toys or mounts that may drop from these chests. So I cannot stop doing world quests because unless RNGesus was kind to me, I could go the entire expansion without getting everything out of the chest. So I might be doing world quests every time I log in and not have time for dungeons and raids because I'm so busy trying to get those things. I remember in BFA, it took me all the way to the end of the expansion to get the final toy that drops from the Volpera in Voldoom. It took me the whole expansion. So those were a whole bunch of world quests I had to log in and do every day to get rep that I didn't want to do, shouldn't have needed to do. I mean, I can't imagine people had fun doing that. I mean, it's the same world quest every goddamn day. It's like they might mix it up a little bit, but I could do those world quests in my sleep at that point. And then things like dungeons. There was dungeons and, you know, that then led into the raids, but now it's like now there's Mythic Plus, and Mythic Plus constantly goes up in difficulty, and now Mythic Plus at its top tier basically drops even better gear than normal or heroic raiding. So you never have to raid if you don't want to. You can just keep doing Mythic Plus over and over and over again. But to get like plus 15 keys and things like that and get the purses needed to be invited to groups and allowed into groups, it's too much. I don't have time to run my own guild. Otherwise, I would run my own guild and get those plus 15s at my own pace. But I don't have the time to do that. So I would have to rely on these pickup groups. I can't do it. I can't get into these groups because I don't have the time to dedicate to Mythic Pluses to get all the things I need. On top of the fact that I'm trying to do all these world quests or these weekly things, especially in the current expansion. Every Tuesday, it's like, gotta do the soup, gotta do the big dig, gotta do the time rift, gotta do the super bloom. Right? And it's too much. It's too much. And it's actually made me back off from the game. But again, that's kind of a me problem. I don't know if too many other people are having that problem. But I do agree with the sense of the game has gotten too complicated. It's gotten too difficult to do a majority of the content. I even remember way back in, I think it was Mists of Pandaria, I posted a screenshot to a WoW subreddit. I can't find that post now. I don't think the group exists anymore. Of me being proud of a certain achievement that popped. But I had a default UI basically because I was never really much of a raider. And when I did raid, I raided with my guild that didn't require add-ons. And I even remember a comment on the post saying, I don't want to sound elitist, but you wouldn't be allowed in my guild with a default UI. You wouldn't be allowed. So then it's like, okay, well, I never needed or wanted these add-ons before, but now I have to have them just to get into your guild. So that's not counting any of the other gatekeeping they might do. So the WoW communities put up these arbitrary walls every step along the way. Like it was gear score, then there's DPS levels, and now there's purses, and now there's achievements, and now there's Mythic Plus score, if I remember correctly, is the most recent one. I don't know because I don't do it anymore. There's not a real big problem with having tiered raid difficulties. Just make the fights less difficult, less insane. Because I feel like most new players, probably don't even do LFR properly. They probably screw those up. And if they can't do LFR, they're never going to want to do normal. Right? You're expecting too much of a learning curve when people hit max level. And considering that the previous, 60 levels do not train you. If you're a brand new player, you do not get trained on how to raid by leveling up your character. You don't. And that lack of training means you're going to have such a hard time getting into it. If you're a new player now, you're going to have a bad time trying to get into these raid groups. I do believe that, yes, we need to stop catering the game to people at the top tier and people that have been playing the game for 17 years who might want that challenge, but they're leaving behind a whole bunch of people that we need to replenish the deteriorating population that we have. I can, even if I didn't want to quit WoW, I can't play it as much. You need to, bring people in to replace those that are leaving. And people don't want to get into this game the way that it's catered right now. Esports and streaming have probably definitely contributed to this problem. I mean, you try to look at a WoW stream and watch a Mythic Plus, you have no idea what the hell's going on. There's abilities flying everywhere. There's messages popping up on screen from add-ons. You have no idea. It looks crazy. So, in my opinion, yes, make things easier. You need to make things easier. Raids, mythics, make them less difficult than they are now. 2, I really feel like we need to extend the leveling process a bit. We need to get out of this mentality that the game starts at max level. The previous levels should at least in some way train you for what you're going to hit at max level, and they don't. As weird as it might sound, I feel like you need to put less content into the game. 20 years of achievements, 20 years of gear, 20 years of raids, 20 years of quests. Like, that's a lot to somebody first stepping in. So, to add the insane amount of things that, like, Dragonflight has, you open up all the things. Every outdoor zone has 2,000 things to collect, basically. You go back to an old classic zone, it's like 100. There's too much in every zone. And number 3, I don't know if it's even something Blizzard can do. It's just the community just needs to get better. There has to be less gatekeeping. There has to be people welcoming into the community. People need to be willing to let newer people into their groups and fostering new raiders and helping them get their skill up rather than regulating them down to make their own little guilds which struggle to get past the most basic of normal modes. And yes, maybe ban add-ons. I think it's kind of ridiculous that Blizzard basically makes their raids under the assumption you have things like DBM and weak orders. That's crazy to me that they don't just put something like that into the game for everybody to use then. You either do it yourself or don't make your encounters under the assumption that the people are using those add-ons. I think those are the things that would need to be fixed, at least for someone like me to get back into the game the way I used to be. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider dropping a like. It really helps the channel. I do stream on Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays if that interests any of you. But with that, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Good night.